I don't watch wrestling. You're pretty deep into this stuff, right?
A little too deep.
A little too deep? There's no such thing, man. Especially if you run a channel about it.
Yeah, true.
If you ask me anything about modern day wrestling, I would know nothing except for like the main people everyone knows. But when I was a kid, man, I was really into like WCW when it was that. And then I think it turned into it got bought out by WWE. Yeah. And then turned into WWF.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, it was WCW and WWF were like the two main companies going, head to head. They were the most popular. And then WCW got bought out by WWF at the time because it was, they just had a better, they weren't running things right, so they kind of went bankrupt. And
that's so weird because I remember them being the more popular one.
They were, yeah. They have this whole thing. So Eric Bischoff, he was the former owner of WCW.
I know exactly who that is. So you're talking my era, man.
So he has a podcast called 83 Weeks where he talks about old WCW stuff. But that's based on, that's how long they were beating WWF in the ratings. They had 83-week win streak. So they had
WCW was beating out WWF.
Yeah. So that was around the time like 97. So whenever NWO started, which is the design for this,
which was originally a WCW thing, right?
Yeah. So what had happened is two guys. So Razor Ramon, he was in WWF, and Big Daddy Cool Diesel, and they went to WCW, and they started the NWO. So they were called the Outsiders because they were the guys that came from the other brand.
Like the New World Order, right? Is what it was?
Yeah. Right. So they ended up starting that with Hulk Hogan. When Hulk Hogan turned into a bad guy, he became Hollywood Hogan. And that's when everybody was like, oh my God, he was always the American hero and say your prayers, eat your vitamins type thing. And So that was like the big thing. So when NWO started, they just took off in the ratings. They became that much better than. And
wasn't there more people in NWF? Because I remember Kevin Nash being in it.
Yeah. So that was Big Daddy Cool Diesel. That was his real name, is Kevin Nash. So when he went to WCW, he went by his real name, Kevin Nash.
Oh, that makes sense.
And Scott Hall was Razor Ramon. He
changed his name. Is that what it was?
Well, that was their real names. So their personas in WWF were Razor Ramon and Big Daddy Cool Diesel.
I just remember being Kevin Nash in the thing at one point.
Yeah.
So his persona was himself, and then he switched it to like a different name.
Yeah. So when they went over to WCW, because WWF pretty much owns everything that shows up on their show.
They sucked up the market. It's like the UFC of the wrestling world.
So they can't use
all the other companies.
Yeah, they couldn't use their other names on that. So.
No, you're good. How dare you bring a cell phone, man? What are you?
Yeah, I got kids and stuff, But they own those names, so when they went to the other company, they couldn't use Razor Ramon or.
I'm glad you brought that up. Do you ever watch the Howard Stern show?
Every now and then.
He had 2 different times. He had a professional wrestler on there, and I didn't know this was a thing in the wrestling community. But I guess that guy, who's the main guy that runs the whole thing,
Vince McMahon.
There you go. Yeah. I guess he owns these guys' names.
Yeah, John Cena. He owns John Cena's name.
So John Cena was one that was on Howard Stern, and he talked about he owns his name, and I thought like, oh, like what's his real name? He goes, no, that's my name.
Yeah.
So his mom named him John Cena. Vince McMahon owns his name. Yeah. And so now when he does movies, even like whatever, like he gets a piece of all that.
Yeah.
And then The Rock was on there, and he doesn't own The Rock's name.
Yeah, The Rock bought his own likeness. Yeah.
Well, and then Howard Stern was asking him, see, according to The Rock on this interview, he's like, no, it's always been my name. I never had it. And Howard Stern, he's really good at like getting information on people. Yeah. He was trying to tell him, hey man, I had John Cena in here. Like, I know Vince McMahon. He's in the money making business. Yeah. Like, how did you get your name? Like, what dirt do you have on Vince McMahon? Is what he's saying. And he never said anything, but he just smiled his Rock smile. Yeah. And he was just like, nope, I own my name. And he never explained it. And it made me wonder. I'm like, I bet he
probably has something on him. Well, his family's been in the wrestling business forever, up to like his great grandpa.
The Rock's family,
he's like 3rd generation.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
It's funny, these new generation of kids don't even know that he got famous in wrestling.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's been famous acting longer now than he was as a wrestler.
Yeah, with that, didn't he have like the bull or the
Brahma bull? Yeah.
Yeah, and then he covered it up with that.
An even bigger one.
Is that what it is? I thought it's a tribal one, right?
So that was, so he has the Brahma bull on his right arm. He had it. And now he has a like bigger one that like covers like half of his arm. Mm-hmm. And then he has the tribal thing on the left side. It like goes up his arm and around his pec.
I always thought the tribal one covered the bull one.
No, he kept that one for a while, and then he just covered it like the past couple of years. It's like an even bigger bull.
So I'll show these guys.
Yeah.
That was interesting, man. But yeah, so I would watch these when I was a kid, and it's kind of a bad time in my life, but it was kind of a cool memory. Mm-hmm. I grew up in like a pretty bad home, and I ended up in foster care later on in life. But at this time I was with my biological family, and the guy my mom was dating was addicted to wrestling and would watch wrestling. And he was one of those people that didn't like, he was like full blown, this is real. They live this life. Like he was all about it kind of thing. And so naturally I'm like, what? And I got into it. Like I got really into it because he was into it to the point where I was like following the storylines and everything. And he wasn't a nice guy. I was always grounded. But the way the hallway was where my room was, if I waited and was quiet, if I snuck up, I could catch some of the shows. Yeah. So when I was a little kid, I would sneak out and I'd be paranoid because if they come out to the hallway, they're going to see me. So I'd be listening to them, but also watching the WCW at the time and just keeping up with all the storylines. And I would run back and tell my brother like what was happening.
What's going on,
Or if I thought someone, and they would get up sometimes to get water and I'd run back to my room. I'd be like waiting. I'd come back and like miss the big part of the match or something. But I was like deep into it. I had the what's the Sting? Do you remember Sting with the baseball bat? I had like a doll that you would wrestle. Do you remember those? It was like a wrestle, like
Wrestle Buddy, I think they call it.
Yeah, it had some name, but you could wrestle the actual thing. And me and my brother would have like these little wrestling tournaments like in the room and stuff. So I remember that. I just never followed it after that. But it obviously went on to be super successful. It's like a huge following.
Yeah. So I kind of got into it probably around, I don't know how old I was, maybe 10 years old or something.
Yeah.
And I watched it pretty, religiously.
Was your family into it? Is that why?
No, well, my brothers were and like my cousins.
Yeah.
But my parents hated it. They could not stand it.
They think it was like,
well, it was like super racy at the time, They
racy.
Had like
the chicks.
The chicks were half naked, and there was a lot of like
if they
sexual
only knew.
plot lines. Yeah.
It's the whole world now.
Yeah. So they hated it. So a lot of times I'd watch it at my cousin's house, and they lived behind us. We had a house like we just jumped the wall, and we were at their house. And
mine.
Yeah, mine's over here.
Okay.
And so I'd watch it over there because my uncle was into it, and my cousins, like the whole family, watched it over there. So I would watch it all the time over there. But around probably 2004, 2005, I just kind of, I was playing a lot of basketball in high school, and my attention was elsewhere, probably girls or something.
So there was a time where you stopped following it as much?
Yeah. So I didn't watch from then till probably about maybe like 10 years ago. I got back into it, and I started watching when The Rock came back. So, because it was like a familiar face.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah. He came back, and I started watching again, and it kind of picked back up. It was like him and John Cena. It was like this big once in a lifetime thing.
I never understood why John Cena was so popular because I didn't watch wrestling. I just I'm not a huge fan of his movies.
Yeah.
And I've seen him in interviews. I don't think he's the dude's jacked out of his mind. He's like, you know what I mean? If you're looking for some guy that's like the model of what a wrestler should look like, it should be him. But I never was he, so did he have some cool character in wrestling? Like, why did people like him?
So when he was popular, I didn't watch, So when
I see what you're saying.
When he came in, he kind of it was like him, Randy Orton, Dave Bautista, who else was there? Brock Lesnar. He was big then too, but I didn't really watch when they were like big. So I didn't understand the John Cena run either. I kind of get it now. I see like he's good at what they call psychology or like storytelling in the actual matches. But I was never like a big fan of John Cena.
Yeah, I saw a clip of him rapping and stuff. And
he had
it's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, that was like his thing for a while. They call him the Doctor of Thugonomics.
I remember when those memes went crazy, when the "You Can't See Me's."
Yeah,
and it's like John Cena was with like Ashton Kutcher, and they're like, why is Ashton Kutcher by himself?
Yeah,
like,
because John Cena's there. Yeah.
Those memes were pretty popular. But yeah, I never.
Your palms are sweaty, but hit the subscribe button already. Mom's spaghetti is red like the button to which you are heading to click on. Confetti.